Okay, so we're practicing law of cosines. Okay, so I'm looking at my first problem. Write in my information. So they gave me side A, side C, side B. So this is the side case. Okay, since I'm doing side case, I know I'm doing law of cosines. So in my last video, we talked about this. If I'm given side, the best and the smartest thing to do is when we're solving for one of the angles, start with your biggest side. So I'm going to find angle B first because side B is my biggest side. So that means I'm going to be using this equation. Cosine B equals a squared plus c squared minus b squared over 2 times a times c. And then we just plug it into our calculator. So when you plug it into your calculator, it should look like this, using the inverse cosine. So plug this in your calculator, and you find that angle B is approximately 135.82146 yada 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 degrees. Okay, so I always tell my students to round to the 10th. So angle B is 135.8 degrees. Okay, now because I solved for the biggest side and I got B to be an obtuse angle, when I switch to law of sines, I don't have to worry about which angle or which side I use next. And since I have this ratio already, I can use it to find my next angle. So let's find angle C next. So we use this law of sines ratio. That means that plug into your calculator. So C equals inverse sine of 18 times the sine of 135.8 over 27. You let your handy dandy calculator do the work, and it tells us that angle C is 27.684187 blah 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 degrees, or 27.7 degrees. And then take those two, subtract it from 180, which gives us 16.5 degrees for angle A. Okay. So like I said, if you solve for the biggest side, which would most likely be our biggest angle first in this case, then it makes things a whole lot easier, because then I don't have to worry about starting with the smallest side. Okay. But say if I had gone and started with angle C or angle A first, if I did law of sines to find angle B next, I would not have gotten the 135 degrees, because that's in the second quadrant, and this arc sine will never give us back second quadrant values. So be very careful. Okay. All right, for the second practice problem, again, start off with what they gave us. So they gave us angle A was 78, side B was 32, and side C was 25. Since I don't have a ratio to do law of sines, this is absolutely a law of cosines problem, specifically the side angle side case. Okay, so I'm going to start by solving for A first. Okay, so this way I can get a ratio and then use law of sines. So my equation is A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of angle A. So that means A equals the square root of 32 squared plus 25 squared minus 2 times 32 times 25 times the cosine of 78 degrees. And plug it into your calculator, and you get A is approximately 36.281418 blah blah blah. So A is 36.3. Excuse me. Now, I've got my ratio. Okay. Now, at this point, I got to solve for angle B or C. And like I said before, since A is 78 degrees and 36 is the biggest side, that means my biggest angle is 78 degrees. So it really doesn't matter at this point which one you solve for next. But I solved for C next. So I used my ratio that I ended up with. And I found angle C next. So sine C over 25. Which means angle C is the inverse sine of 25 times the sine of 78 degrees over 36.3, which means it's approximately 42.3765, blah, 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 blah. So this is 42.4 degrees. And now that I have my two angles, subtract them from 180, and I get B, which is 59.6 degrees. And there's my triangles. So just make sure, again, that everything makes sense when you're done. Okay? Biggest angle coincides with the biggest side length, smallest angle, small side length. And it all looks like it works out.